In our last episode, the intrepid crew of the good ship Seamoose was once again stymied in their quest to start the river portion of the Great Loop and were forced to return to Hammond Marina to attempt to repair the broken generator. The generator had a dead reservoir capacitor. In the process of diagnosing and fixing the generator, I shorted out the oil pressure sensor by accident, which surely needed replacing anyway. I decided to hire a professional to install the Balmar so it could be done in one day, and we could get on with our journey. We rented a car and drove to Ottawa to bring it back to Hammond.
And of course, on the way, we stopped at Culver's. After a few days' wait, we headed over to Crowley's Yard Service to have the work done.
Located on the Calumet-Sagonchiki Channel, or CalSag for short, Crowley's was an interesting place.
We spent the afternoon watching the tugs move huge ships down the narrow channel and under the tiny space bridges. Yorksey enjoyed the show as much as we did.
In all the years I've owned Seamoose, I've hired someone else to work on it 4 times. Crowley's was the first large professional shipwright I had ever contracted with, and I expected ABYC compliant work of the highest order with a price to match. Sadly, the lack of technical skills exhibited by the professional who installed the Balmar system is simply beyond comprehension. At this time, we are in negotiations with Crowley for the damage caused by their technician, and they have refunded the full amount they charged for the work. To Crowley's credit, the management is doing their best to minimize the financial loss we incurred. The increased popularity of boating during COVID, combined with the difficulty of finding qualified people who want to work, has left the marine service industry significantly understaffed. Having your boat fixed is not at all the same as having your car fixed. If you're unable to repair every system on your boat yourself, doing the loop could result in frustrating, long, expensive delays when things break.
And on the boat, things break.
Thinking we had a reliable charging system, we departed Crowley's early in the morning and headed to Chicago. It was a beautiful day. We will make a hard turn to port and head straight into the lock. It's so busy on the shoreline, it's really hard to see, but I'm pretty sure that it's that green buoy right there that does the Seamoose. What's our time to open? Over.
Stand by on the lake, Captain. Wait for the gates on the lake shut to open.
Roger that, thank you.
What should we do?
Stand by the lake, wait for the gates to open. Seamoose's propeller turns slowly in neutral as the transmission is wearing out. It's challenging to wait for locks and dams.
Free of the lock, we headed into the jungle of skyscrapers crossing the famous Lake Shore Drive. In 5 miles, we went under 40 bridges.
There are 2 bridges with a fixed height of 17 feet. We're going to show you the transit without music or dialogue so you can get a feel for what it was really like. Between the narrow, turbulent channel, the scenery, the low bridges, and the tour boats, this was about as white-knuckled of a boating experience as you will ever have.
Passing under the bridges, sitting on the flybridge, in many cases, we were 6 to 10 feet away from the people on the street.
almost like we've gone from one planet to another, isn't it?
After you get through the majestic downtown, which passed very quickly, you have a narrow industrial channel that goes on for miles. At times, it smelled really bad. We encountered our first barge and tow. These monsters would challenge us for the next 1,000 miles.
Next, we passed through the permanent electrical barrier, designed to prevent invasive species, notably Asian carp, from getting into the Great Lakes. The water itself is electrified. I forget the distance. You're not allowed to touch the water because you could be electrocuted. So, the sea moose has never been in electrified water before. Let's see what happens. I believe that's where it begins, right up there, isn't it?
The carp are huge. We could easily catch and eat one, but Alan said they tasted really awful.
We arrived at the Lockport Lock and Dam at dark. The lockmaster allowed us to tie up for the night against a fence with a sign that said, "Do not tie up here." After tying up, we discovered that the charging system was completely inoperative and we were running a dead loss electrical system. The next morning, we were forced to wait until noon to get through the lock as there was an issue with the gate. So we've been in communication with all of these loopers on Nebo and warning them about the lock closure. So it's almost like we're meeting our friends here for the first time. So Darina, your first big high drop lock, what do you think?
Am I scared? I don't know. I mean, looking on this huge wall and distance between where we are right now and what we have in front of us.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's a little bit like, we'll see, I don't know. We tied the boat by all rules, like Alan told us, and also like it was like Lockmaster. Yeah, so it's our first experience. I mean,
on one this big, I've never been on one this big. I've been in little locks, but nothing like this. I mean, we're looking at a huge drop down to the water.
We stayed at the Free Dock in Juliet, where the local police told us horrible stories of the people who commit suicide by jumping off this bridge and end up in the Brandon Road Lock.
Good morning, it's 6:30. We had a loopers meeting last night on the dock, and 5 of us are going to hit the bridges and the locks together. So we have a Ranger Tug, a 36 Banks, our 34 Marine Trader, a 52 Katie Krogan, and a 42-foot, I think that's a Marine Trader LaBelle, and we're all going to run together. We called the Lockmaster at 6 and said there were 5 PCs coming down to lock at 6:30. We got ship to ship on 6-8, ship to lock on 14, and we're monitoring 16. And we're all in a nice line. We're in the middle. There's 2 in front and 2 in the back. So this is a looper breakfast party. Going through a lock is fairly easy if you pay attention and can handle lines.
Most locks have big posts, called bollards, that float up and down as the water level in the lock changes.
So I drive the boat very slowly along the lock wall until the bollard is just at the lower steering station door, and then I put the boat in reverse to stop it.
And I run a line around the bollards, tying the boat to the midship clit.
Going down in a lock is easy. The boat slips right down. Going up is the challenge. Going up, the bollard sticks and jumps, and it yanks the boat against the wall.
In some locks, there is a lot of turbulence, and we have to hold the boat away from the lock wall to keep it from scrapping.
We do this with our 2 boat hooks, one of us on the bow and one on the stern, holding the boat away from the wall. In one lock, we tied around the top ring of the bollard when we should have chosen the bottom ring, and we almost ripped the midship cleat right out of the deck.
This was one of those situations where you had to think really fast and take actions quickly.
As we reached the top of the lock, the boat was violently pulled against the lock wall and started listing to one side. I noticed that the line between the bollard and the cleat was under tremendous pressure, leapt over and released the line, and we popped off the wall.
Had the cleat been tied off incorrectly, or Alan had not paid attention on it, the cleat would have been ripped out, throwing the boat into the center of the lock and possibly crashing into the boat on the other wall. The locks are huge, and the bollards often squeak as they move up and down. It's just a little spooky.
Immense amounts of water and tremendous forces are at play. Occasionally, when locking, you have to raft up to another boat, and you meet the most interesting
Two
people.
friends who came into the lock and rafted up. And you are
Gary LaMarche and Laura.
awesome. And they just told us an amazing story. You had no sailing experience at all.
No,
You went to a 2-week class in Thailand.
because my wife wanted me to.
Right, and then you sailed across the Atlantic.
Yes.
And you did everything.
Well,
Every night. I didn't do
Basically,
everything.
yeah.
I did.
she helped out, but
She cooked.
yeah, she cooked.
And I took the day shift. He
She
just did
would
night
watch
shift.
the autopilot. Autopilot kicks out every now and then, so you got to kind of babysit it.
Right.
So she would autopilot, and then if anything went wrong, she'd.
Wake him up.
That's amazing.
But I worked a lot of midnight, so I learned to, I'd sleep light and just wake up every 3 hours and check everything. Made a bed right in the cockpit, so I could just kind of wake up, look at everything, and go back to sleep again.
So did you encounter any bad weather?
No, the crossing was perfect. Yeah.
Wow, nice.
But
Perfect.
part of the crossing was from Tangier to the Canaries, and there we did
That was a rough stretch.
have a very rough stretch.
Because we were in the wrong time of the year. We're kind of late.
Because I learned to sail in the Pacific, and it gets pretty hairy out there.
Yeah, the ocean waves are just so big, and so they're not a problem until the wind kicks up enough to blow the tops out.
So we've been stuck at the Marseille lock for 2.5 hours, waiting for a barge, a double barge set to be assembled. The first set of barges has locked up, and we're waiting for it to pull out, and we're hoping that the surly lockmaster will allow us to go on the downbound. He might not, because he hasn't been very nice to anyone, or so I've heard. We're down to our last cookie, so I hope we get moving soon.
It's raining.
And now it's starting to rain, adding to the misery factor of the wait for the Marseille lock. So we'll be pulling up the anchor in the rain and locking in the rain. Fortunately, from the lock to the marina is only 2 miles. However, at this rate, it might be 8 o'clock before we get there.
If you like what you see, please subscribe. It really helps us out, and it doesn't cost anything.
We really appreciate your attention and subscription.
So, Darina, how can people find out more about us online?
You can find us on our website page, here, on our Instagram page, here, and also on our Facebook page, here.
Once again, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to be reminded of new episodes when they come out, don't forget to ring that bell.
Thank you so much.